We back to progress over perfection. I'm Mauro, and today we talk about again with Darren Reynolds about every does matter. Last episode was a bit heavy because we talk about impact in this world of selling children in Nepal and actually maybe everywhere in Southeast Asia. Um, it's very sad. But in this episode, we want to talk about how we can help Every Daughters Matter, how much you need to save these girls.
Yeah, look, we've come to an interesting the way of looking at it. When you I just want to give a bigger picture briefly that we don't have many staff on the ground in Australia. That our focus is the mission where it's needed and ensuring that as much gets there for the impact on the ground. Every agency works differently, and the bigger you get, obviously the dynamics change. But right where we're at now, there's only 7 staff in Australia. I'm based in Perth in Western Australia and work remotely from the rest of the team who are predominantly in New South Wales. But we don't have an office anywhere in Australia, and that's by choice and by planning at this stage. We don't need the overheads of what we do here. As I mentioned in one of the previous podcasts, is that my job is to raise awareness and support. So I'm actually quite mobile in where I go, particularly in Western Australia, around the state. But when you take that cost, which is minimal, out of the equation, when you take the cost of running all those frontline services that we have described, so just to recap, we have 13 surveillance booths that are manned by 3 to 4 Nepali staff at any given time. We have emergency shelters attached to each of those surveillance booths, so a place where the girls can be accommodated for a short period of time, for a number of days, where they're fed, clothed, looked after, counselled. Then the safe homes, which is longer-term care for up to 40 girls at any given time who are educated, trained in sewing, different programs, and our halfway house, which is an education centre. When you take the cost of all that, so including all our frontline staff, around 60-odd staff, and you divide that cost by the number of rescues, it comes to $187 per rescue, which is so within reach of most Australians, even during a fuel crisis, right? Everything's relative, and we understand the pain is real right now. What we're experiencing as this goes to where is real, and certainly people are feeling the pinch. But when you're considering what that money achieves, when we stop that girl at that border, and instead of going and losing her, instead of being exploited sexually and organ harvested, and she's going back to relative safety. $187 per rescue is amazing. So we're turning lives around 180 degrees at those border points for $180 effectively, if you dumb it down. So even when I approach schools or schools approach me here in Western Australia predominantly, where a school will say, can you come and talk to our students about human trafficking? Can you come and challenge our boys about their behaviour when they go overseas? They say, how much do you charge to come and speak as a guest speaker? And I'll say, let's turn that around. How many kids do you want to rescue? And it's a whole different perspective. So when you say 4, that's what, 720 or so. And that's, again, a lot of private schools here in particular are able to see the value of that for their students, but obviously the greater value of rescuing the children. So that's probably the low-hanging fruit in terms of support. The other side of it is that the surveillance booths themselves, with the emergency shelter attached, cost us around $22,000 a year to run, covering all the costs of making sure it's fully staffed, that there's enough food for the girls, that clothing, all that sort of stuff, and even things like equipping our staff with technology and stuff. $22,000. It's not insignificant, but it's the impact of that makes is incredible. And it costs about $6,000 to establish a new one. But that's the establishment of a new booth and the shelter that's attached. So often somebody says we want we want to fund a new booth for you. You go, well, that's the $6,000 plus the 22. So you're talking 28 to 30,000 to get that running. So that's a different thing. And then you've got your education programs. So look, I think one of the things that I've really has been a real touch point for me since starting a couple of years ago is there's been, in the early days of the organisation, there were some lovely people who were contributing big amounts of money to help us get established and establish those booths, understanding the cost of the 22 grand, etc. And they would give us a one-off donation. Maybe they'd do that each year. But if that suddenly stops, then we've got a bit of a crisis. What really works for us is often when I go and do a presentation at a community group like a Rotary Club or a Lions or some of you might have heard of Probus Clubs or U3A. These are just community groups where they invite guest speakers in, and I say, would you be interested in becoming an interception partner with us? And a partner is exactly that. You are helping us on an ongoing basis to sustain the work that we're doing. And that could be as low, there's no set amount. It could be somebody giving us $10 a month. Look, it's not a lot, and it's not even going to rescue a girl each year, but it's actually the consistency of it that's important, because at some point you will. Like, it might take 14, 15 months. I can't do the maths on that. Yeah. But we know it's coming. And if there's 300, 400 other people giving $15, $20, $40, $1,000 a month, I guess that's our business model. We know that that's sustainable, and that at some point with that, and it's growing, our supporter base is definitely growing. At some point we can look at it and go, we can do the maths on that. We can open a new surveillance booth and sustain it ongoing because of the support we get. And if somebody is finding it difficult during this period of time where the prices are, fuel prices are impacting them, and they stop giving their top $10 a month, we don't feel that as much. And somebody else will probably step in and say, I can do $10 a month. So I guess that's, if anyone who is interested in supporting us, everydaughtermatters.org.au, there is a donation button there where you can either do a one-off, if that's all you can do right now, or you can say monthly, I want to give $20 a month, $50 a month. That's gold for us. And you get updates then, and you'll be part of what we're doing. You will get the numbers each month that we're rescuing. And as I said, it's around 130, 140 a month. Yeah. You're part of that. You'll hear some of the stories of what we're doing.
Wow. Do you take any help from the government?
That's something we're looking at on and on. We're only about 6 years old as an organisation. So Ross set this up in 2019. There are other organisations in the similar field that have been going a lot longer and are a lot further along that journey. But that is definitely something we are looking at. So DFAT, I can't remember what that stands for. It's the government agency for supporting this kind of work. So yeah, look, it comes with strings attached, and you've got to meet the criteria and all that. So that's not something we're scared of. And when it's right, it'll make sense. We really do draw right now from the Australian public. We sustain what we're doing simply because the Australian public and let me pivot here. And this is encouragement to have a look at a group called How Ridiculous. I don't know if you've heard of How Ridiculous.
Already no.
Okay, so this is a YouTube channel. It's based here in Perth in WA, where I am. These guys, they're very family friendly. They will do things like we have a dam here in WA called Mundaring Weir, and they'll go to the top of the dam with a basketball, and they'll put a hoop down the bottom of the dam, and they'll try and get the basketball through the hoop. And they'll keep filming until they get it right. Okay. These guys have built a massive following. There's 24 million subscribers. And obviously that's more than the population of Australia at this point. Yeah. So they are big supporters of what we do. They are beautiful-hearted, it's mainly three guys. They support one of our safe homes financially. And they have, in May last year, they went to Nepal. They went and visited with our staff. They went and visited a number of interception booths, safe homes. We support 2 schools as well with staffing and food for the kids. They went and visited those schools, and they had this giant balloon they were playing with the kids who'd never seen anything like it before. It's just beautiful until it popped. That was a bit traumatic, but thankfully they had another one. And these guys released a documentary. based on that experience. So go to YouTube, look up How Ridiculous, and you will see it on there. It's about 40 minutes long, and it incredibly reveals the work we do in a really beautiful way. They also have merchandise where they got the girls in one of our safe home to actually screen print some shirts they bought, and they're selling that merchandise at full support goes to us from sales of that. So two things: it educates you on what we do. It gives you it introduces to Ross and Janelle and some of our senior staff. But it also obviously is a prompt there to support what we're doing. So, yeah.
Mm. So you talked about a school. What do
Yes.
you do with the school? How they are
In
organized?
Nepal?
In Nepal, yes.
Yeah, look, one of the most so we're in a couple of very vulnerable communities. These are where attendance is very low. Anything we can do to get these kids coming along. There are an example where we had a mother who was mentally ill who would keep burning her child's clothes, his school uniform. So we now keep the school uniform at the school. So when he turns up, he gets changed into his school uniform. That's such an encouragement for him to keep going. We will provide meals. I believe it's one meal a week for each of the students. And so at least they're going one day a week, but I guess the more you get them there, the more likely they are to continue going. We cover the cost of the teachers because this is where the education starts. Those kids are less vulnerable when they're in school and they're being educated, and we're also able to inject that into, and certainly as the girls particularly the girls get a little bit older, we're able to introduce the concept of human trafficking to them and what to look for. So it's more of a prevention thing, and it's a model we could possibly replicate if depending on funding,
Mm.
given that we're doing that in 2 schools currently.
Mm. Your staff is male and female? Is just female?
Um,
How you
Uh,
work
be-
out that?
it is overwhelmingly women, because again, they've just got this beautiful insight into what it looks like and how to intercept these girls. And yeah, I've mentioned before that some of them have been trafficked themselves, and in fact, a significant amount have been. So their experience is invaluable, not only in identifying a human trafficking moment, but also in helping them understand what is happening. Because if they don't believe you, they'll try again. So that is critical that they're involved in
Mm.
that process. The men really are reduced in this in this circumstance to some of our senior guys are men, and then some of the drivers and things. So there needs to be a bit of a male presence there too for
Yeah,
security purposes.
yeah.
So there is an element of that, but girls are they're doing the heavy lifting because they're awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Every daughter matters is only here in Australia, or you try to expand your place, your
This stage,
position.
just an Australian organisation. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Who knows where it'll lead to? But right now, we have the staff on the ground here in Australia to make it happen. Yeah, look, I'm the only dedicated fundraiser in Australia, so my job is to, and I don't even look at it as fundraising. I look at it as advocacy. I'm going out telling our stories and then inviting people into that partnership with us, and that's very effective. It helps justify the wage that I'm earning. So given that model, there is at some point, and possibly sooner rather than later, we're going to need to probably expand our footprint and have more people going and telling our stories.
Mm.
As I said, Ross Nancaro, the founder, and well, I still call him the CEO, but actually officially he's handed over to a new CEO.
Mm.
He's now, as I said, he's turned 70 a couple of weeks ago. So
Yeah.
it's time for him to, bring in the next generation that's going to carry this forward. And we're delighted to have Grace Wong join us from International Justice Mission, another big organization that works in this space. So she brings that knowledge and passion and experience with her. We're in transition at the moment. Ross is still very much involved as executive chairman of the board while she's onboarding.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know she's very aware that she would love to expand. So just give you an example here. We know that for each new booth we start, there's going to be another 120 odd rescues that in the next 12 months for every new booth that we start. So we're not going to keep growing numbers, particularly at those booths, because that's just based on the traffic that's going through.
Mm.
And eventually you would hope those numbers would even go down because people are not going, they know it's not working. So we do need to keep expanding those booths without relinquishing the ones that are there. But we know that the numbers follow the presence.
Of course,
That's where
more booths you have, and then
more risk.
probably there is other places near the place where you are present that
That's
you
correct.
should be, but you're
Yep.
not yet because, yeah. Can I ask you? Um, can you tell us what is one of the story, a good story that you saw coming from the darkness of being sold and the light to come back
Yep.
with the help of Every Daughter's Matter?
So there was one that I often showcase because I do have some photos around this.
Yeah.
There was a girl called Ashika. She was 15 and she was living with an 80-year-old grandfather because she lost both the parents when she was 5, and she was living, I believe, in quite remote village. And look, the grandfather just wasn't coping with raising her. You can imagine being elderly. I mean, that's old for Nepal, life expectancy is nowhere near what it is here. So the burden on him to look after her was intense. And she put out on Facebook, and this is, we know there's been some big decisions made in Western Australia about social media in our youth, and the detrimental effect it has. She put out on Facebook that her dream job was to work in a hotel in India. As you can imagine, somebody saw, wow, opportunity to exploit her. So a guy in India saw that post and effectively just said, if you can get here, I can give you a job, I can give you accommodation. All I need from you is to bring as many girls your age or younger as possible. I mean, I saw your look. Yeah, and again, Australian students immediately are onto that and go, that's a massive red flag. For her, it seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime. She's recruited 2 14-year-old friends, and they've headed for the border. Now, that's incredibly brave. Give them credit. She set her heart on going, I want to break out of the poverty cycle. I want to
Mm.
look after my grandfather. These 2 girls have said, yeah, we'll come with you. So that's dangerous enough just traveling across rural Nepal. They've gotten to the border and our staff immediately went, no, you are too young. So they've stopped them. And we've got a photo, interestingly enough, where we've got the 3 girls and we've got one of our male staff members there, senior guy. And we've got a police officer standing there with this really big rifle. And I'm like, we didn't really need him because there were no traffickers with him, but he just wanted to jump into the shot and show off his rather big rifle. But we're proud to have him work alongside these guys, right? I want to honour that, Look, we've got footage, which I sometimes show, where these 3 girls are sitting in the back of the car. So this emergency shelter was a little bit further than the normal away from the booth. So they're being driven to this. It's not far, but they're just that moment where they're in the back of the car. Now, having my experiences in other parts of Asia, in Southeast Asia, when you rescue a girl there out of a club or a brothel, their faces light up. Once they know they're safe and this is legitimate, the joy, all the mask comes off, and suddenly you see all the emotions that come through, and they're all positive. This footage in the back of this car, these girls are about to burst into tears because they are just so gutted, and they almost hate us in that moment. Is what I sort of sense, is that they're almost resentful towards us. You stopped us going to this incredible. There's a job waiting for us. So they don't believe you and they don't understand what's going on. And I've got another photo where these girls are sitting in that emergency shelter, sitting on this beautiful bed with all these bright pink colors and everything. And we blur out their eyes for the sake of identity, but you can see the expressions on their faces. These girls are not happy. They're just holding it together. So in that moment, I guess it's tough love, because we know that they've dodged a bullet, right? But they don't know that yet. But then I've got another photo later of a bunch of girls, not the same girls, but very similar age and experience, in one of our safe homes. We've had to blur out all the faces again whenever we use it. But even I have whole rooms of people who go, can you see the joy in their faces? And they're like, yes. They are beaming. They know they're loved. They know that they're supported. They know they're safe. They know they've got a future. That is the incredible impact of what we do is not just the prevention that is important and worthy enough on its own, but it's the next phase of how do we get you home safely? How do we negotiate? And how do we upskill you? How do we get you into a place where, and literally I was at this safe home one time and this girl pulled out this large piece of cloth. She started cutting it up and started filming it, right? She jumps on a sewing machine. There's a whole room full of sewing machines. And what I noticed straight away, and that's what shows in the video, it's pedal powered. She's doing it with her feet. She doesn't need electricity. And I'm like, that's, wow, again, culturally so relevant because they don't have electricity in a lot of these villages. And she's just done this, and it was in 9 minutes and 12 seconds. She comes over to me and puts this thing around my neck, and it's a scarf. And I carry with it. It's been 2 years since I got that scarf, and I pull it out at presentations and put it on. And I actually say to the crowd, "How do I look?" And they all go, "Yeah." It's a beautiful moment. It's getting a bit grubby. I probably need to wash it. But it's a beautiful thing. Like, this girl now has a skill that she didn't have before, and she can make money from that. And we show photos of these garments these girls make, and they are as good as you would buy in the shops here. Like, they're so good. So that's my story of hope and light, is that there's enough light in just the rescue, but there is so much more light in the post-rescue.
You said that you can go and talk in schools and events and places.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you tell me what is the reaction that you see, especially in schools, from kids?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'll do a little bit of a sidetrack here. When I go into these Probus and U3A clubs, so if anyone out there is aware of, I'm on the recommended speakers list for both those organisations, and there's plenty of chapters even around Australia. So we might have staff who can go to other locations as well, but specifically here in WA. When I walk into one of those clubs, these are people maybe in their 70s and 80s that are predominantly, they're retirees. And there's an instant warmth there. Like, they make you feel welcome and celebrated just by being there. So it's a kind of an easy win. And biggest thing I see there is at the end of it, and I'll say straight up front, this is a dark subject. This is as we've been discussing, but I want to encourage you about what's been done. Like, the fact that we know it's out there, but I want to encourage you because these stories don't get told. Like, this is why I appreciate this opportunity, Mauro, is anytime we're able to shed light on what is actually being done positive, right? But I notice at the end, they kind of all sit there quiet. I'll ask for questions and I might get a few, and there's often quite insightful questions, but they'll sit there a little bit stunned, and I'll say, "Do you feel encouraged?" And they go, "Oh, yes." But then they kind of go like this again. And I've just done it enough times now, and I've done quite a few of these where you then talk to them afterwards. They go, "We're just processing what we just didn't know. We knew there was out there with it, but you've shed so much light on this." Now go back to the schools, and when you walk into a bunch of year 10s or 11s particularly, they don't give it to you on a plate. Like, they don't immediately hand you respect and warmth. You've got to earn it. So there's an element there where another speaker, and he's talking about human trafficking, whatever. I love early in the piece, I'll actually show some footage from the front lines where it's a little bit hard to understand what's going on. It's literally girls in pink, which are our frontline staff, stopping a tuk-tuk and talking to them. And you hear a guy just speaking. It's rough. It's camera footage. And he goes, "Oh, they've just pulled over a vehicle. Not sure what's going on. I'll have to stop filming because the police might get involved." And the kids are like, "Oh, hang on. What's going on there?" And then you say, "What country do you think that is?" Just lead them along get a little bit of interaction. And then I cut to that one where I told you the story before, where there was a lady with a 50-year-old lady with a 20-year-old girl. That was happening. I show that footage, and suddenly I've got credibility and respect in that room because I'm there and I'm experiencing it firsthand. And I'm just an average Aussie bloke who cares deeply about this stuff. And they can see that. They can see the authenticity and the transparency of that. And they can see that I'm a dad and that I care about my daughter, and therefore I care about all daughters. And yeah, look, there have been times where some of the students do get a bit emotional. And I just maybe if I can highlight one where it just was such a beautiful moment, right? I was at a year 11 retreat where I spoke 5 sessions back to back, and they're all an hour long. So, that's a lot of time to be, that's,
Right.
5 hours of doing effectively the same presentation. And you've got to present in session 5 like you presented in session with the same level of conviction and passion, even though you've said it 5 times. But at about number 3, I was starting to feel a bit more of the emotion coming through, and because I've got my marathon mindset, not my sprint mindset on. But afterwards, I had this girl come up to me, and she didn't speak. She just looked at me, and I said, "Are you okay?" And she went, and I could see she was just holding back the tears, and I went, "I get it. I know. Thank you." And she sort of stepped aside. 4 other girls came up straight behind her. Now, these are year 11, so what, 15, 16 years of age. And they were smiling and laughing. So I went, okay, and one of them said, can I just say that you're the most beautiful man I've ever met? And that burst into tears. Oh, she said, you're the most beautiful soul I've ever met. And it just went, oh, wow. It just caught me by surprise. And I actually lost it myself and just went, oh, wow. And then I had to go and do the next presentation, like within a few minutes of that happening. So I started from in a very emotional place. And by the end, I'm openly tears streaming. And I look down and all the girls in the front row are crying. And I look up and there are boys crying. And I went, I have not seen that before. 15, 16-year-old boys emotionally impacted to that level. There is a sense of modeling. What sort of behavior what sort of emotions are we allowed to experience when we're talking about this stuff? And I'm giving permission to these boys. This is what real men do, right? We actually emotionally engage with this topic because it's important, and because, like I've identified, we're part of the problem or we're part of the solution. And my encouragement is, let's be the white, the knight on the white horse, like coming in and rescuing these girls. Let's be the good guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they walk away with. And just to anecdotally, I'll sometimes go back to a school where I've spoken before, and I get those moments where somebody will call and go, "Oh, Darren, how you doing?" And I go, "Okay." So I'm not just a guest speaker anymore. They've recognised the person that I am and what I'm actually doing with my life, and they want to identify with that. And I think that's beautiful.
Well, this is the thing that make you do the same presentation 5 times
Yeah.
in a day. See the reaction from these kids, these people got engaged, because we don't know this stuff. I
No.
know because accidentally I met you an event and I saw you speak and said, "Wow, this guy." And because with the job I do, too often I heard people got raped and get used and get from the parents and it's horrible. Like we don't talk about these things. We don't know these things because we live in a bubble. Everything is beautiful, especially in Perth. Nothing is wrong in Perth.
Yeah.
And it's good that there's people like you go around and raise awareness about this. I want to say thank you from the heart about this.
Thanks for giving me this platform to share. Yes, without people like you running with this message as well, we don't get heard. So thank you.
I do the best, and I will try to give this interview to the people I know to share in the platform as well. More people will reach, and more people you can reach, and that is important. Yeah.
If I can just reiterate to anyone who's involved in any sort of community group or sporting group, churches, and I have a personal faith, I can speak from that as well. It's not something I use as a blunt object when it's not appropriate, but I can certainly share in a church space, Lions, Rotary, like we said, schools, and businesses. So I'm part of a business networking group, which is where we met.
Yes.
And there are businesses in that room who are on board with what we do and helping fund a booth in Nepal. So happy to do the sort of corporate days or like a workshop, hour-long workshop or something to highlight what's going on. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, Darren, can you tell us if anyone, I hope you find hundreds and hundreds of people want you to present your work, where they can contact you, where they can see you?
Yeah, so either go to the website, which is everydaughtermatters.org.au, and put in the contact us thing, or if you can remember this, it's simply Darren, Darren, at everydaughtermatters.org.au is my email address. That's probably the easiest way, rather than giving out a number at this point,
Mm.
because then I can process that.
Fantastic. And if someone want to work with you guys, there is any chance?
Yeah, just reach out to us, and as I said, we're very small. We keep our operating costs as low as possible here, so don't come expecting a full-time job, straight up. But we're young, we're flexible, and we're growing. So let's have a conversation and see if that leads somewhere. And you might have a creative way that you go, here's how I can contribute. That might not just be giving money, or there's all sorts of initiatives that can be used, and even fundraising opportunities. So just to give you an example here, we had a lady here in Perth last year who turned 40, and she said, and this is actually before we had the computer training centres up, she said, for my 40th, we're inviting a bunch of friends around. I don't want presents. We want you to come and actually speak about what you do, and then say, we're trying to set up a computer training center. We need to fund that. And it was, I think we did a costing on it around 9,000 to 10,000. We raised $17,000 from just a birthday party of people who came in, heard the story, and said, we know where this money's going. We've been able to then send photos of the setup, the computer center being set up, and then girls using those computers. And that's gone back to anyone who donated on that night. So that is creative. It's another way people can do things. Having a collection jar in a restaurant with a logo on it, or whatever. That's
Yeah.
So,
Good. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much to everybody. If you want to donate and help Darren and Every Daughters Matter to donate, go on the website and do the donation. If you want to work with them in some ways, contact Darren. Okay, go have a look on the website. And thank you so much, Darren. You do a fantastic job. See you at the next POP, Progress Over Perfection.
It's not a big city, so I'm sure we'll connect again soon.
Oh, absolutely. Even
if it's over a coffee, mate. You're an awesome guy. Thank you.
I try to follow your lead. See you next. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay.